this morning, and welcome and happy Mother's Day to everybody who is a sweet mama to your babies. And I know that if you have babies, they're one of your whys and probably one of your biggest whys or some of your biggest whys for doing this as a business, and they're worthy of it. So I'm so proud of all of you. I know mom's jobs are never done, and what you do to add Arbonne onto this is something that you do because you love people and you're willing to sacrifice more for them than you are worried about you and your comfort. So happy Mommy's Day to all of you who are a mommy and who have sweet mommies. So we are on chapter 4, and we are living in entrepreneurial time, you guys. And I mean, I love that I lead this. I wish all of you could read it and study it as hard as I have to be able to teach this to you guys on Saturday mornings, because I read it and then I reread it and I reread it. And every time I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I get more out of what it is he is teaching us. And I understand it at a deeper level than what I, did the first time or the second time that I was reading it. So I just want to make sure that you guys all, if you have time, don't just read this once. Don't glance over this. Read it, study it, let it sink in, ask yourself questions, do all the things that you have to do to truly learn what it is that he is saying, and that he's saying, so that you can apply it to your life and develop the skill set that we all have to be able to live in entrepreneurial time. He talks about in the very beginning, you guys, and this is something that as I read it years ago, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it helped me have clarity and vision about how and why people, responded differently to my offer of Arbonne to them than what I did whenever it was offered to me. And not, all the 3 years that she offered it to me and I said no, but the last time she offered it and I said yes and jumped in and went with it with all that I had. But he talks about the vast majority of people live in the universe called Planet Normal, where it's customary for most of the inhabitants to be employed by someone else. And he says that it is an accepted cultural norm that these people are told by their employers what tasks they can perform, where they will work, and when they will work. Curiously, on Planet Normal, he says most people do not work because they're pursuing a dream. They work only to receive a paycheck every week or two. Additionally, they allow their employers to determine the monetary value of their work. While the inhabitants of this planet regularly wish that they were receiving more revenue, they rarely ever consider acting on any creative alternatives. You guys, they are so thoroughly acculturated to this way of life that anything different from what they know is viewed as an alternative, abnormal lifestyle. Meanwhile, you guys, that's Planet Normal. That's where probably most of you came from when you walked into the planet of network marketing. Meanwhile, on the second planet in the universe are those individuals involved in network marketing. On this planet, people are driven by different values. They're not willing to endlessly trade their limited amount of time for a fixed amount of dollars. They are motivated by a desire for freedom to pursue their own dreams, freedom to test their limits of their skills, and freedom of time, freedom to be paid what they are worth, and the freedom from financial constraint. These people know that those on Planet Normal view them as if they were half crazy. Similarly, though, when they look at the inhabitants of Planet Normal, they cannot comprehend how those people will willingly yield such important areas of life over to others. Indeed, these two groups are worlds apart. And you guys, the difference, I think, I look back and I mean, I was just having a conversation, honestly, this week with my son who, is in the Planet Normal job, and there was a position and, what he thought that position was worth and he was worth in that position and what the employers thought it was worth were two different things. And was he frustrated by that? Was he, not happy that he didn't get to do and have what he thought it was worth? But you guys, at the same time, he's not willing to go and do anything else different to pursue and test his skills and see if there's anything or anyone else out there that's willing to do it and let him, test his limits of his skills and truly be paid what he is worth. because he is worth more than what they're paying him, in my opinion as well. And I know I'm mom, but that's just true for most employees in the workforce. You get the 15 laws of growth. If you guys did that book club call with us, I got to share at John Maxwell's event for network marketers on the chapter of environment. And that is what I love about Arbonne's environment, is that there are no constrictions on your ability to grow. There is nothing that constrains you from being all that you can be, doing all that you can do, and having all that you can have, and enjoying every bit of it while you're getting it. There are zero constraints. Whereas in the other world, you are held back and constricted and restricted from your environment. You're going to hit a lid. I mean, I hit lids. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. I had everything I could in my nursing career, and boom, all of a sudden there was nowhere else for me to go. And you guys, it felt horrible because we are wired to grow. And so if you feel a constraint, you're going to feel frustrated. Yet you have to understand that's the world you came from. That's the world most people live in. That's what we are accustomed to do, conditioned to do. And anything different is weird and abnormal. And you need to understand that that's what you're dealing with when you're talking to people, but you also need to be aware of what is that conditioning that you've had in your lives doing to you in this world that we live in today with network marketing. He says the views, he says what this story portrays is it represents two different views about a world we live in. He said one world is full of daring, proactive people who see opportunity and choose to hold the reins to their future in their own hands. And the other is a place where individuals are more risk averse, he says, and prefer to keep life safe and predictable and give their dreams and the reins of their lives over to others. In short, it's a wonderful illustration of the life of an entrepreneur and one as a non-entrepreneur. And you guys, I want to challenge his wording there a little bit, because when he says they prefer risk averse, life safe, life predictable, has anybody had their safety tested or put at risk in that planet normal world? Did you ever have somebody take something away from you or put more onto you, or you lose a job that you thought you had that was going to let you work a certain number of hours and get paid a certain amount of money so that you could predict how much money you had to pay your bills with? Has anybody had anything happen to them that messed up that safety? Because I know a lot of people that have, where they thought they were safe. So it's not as safe as people think it is. And that's what you need to realize if you're counting on that. It's nice to have, but I was somebody that was like, I don't want to put my security and what I am doing for my family, to take care of my family, in somebody else's hands. I wanted to be able to have a backup plan, because if anybody got fickle with what it was that I had that was my security, it wouldn't affect me and it wouldn't keep me from taking care of who it was I needed to be taking care of. So it's not as safe as people like to act like it is, or think that it is, or as comfortable. We talk about all the time, like how uncomfortable is your comfort zone, because it stresses you out and holds you back from doing what it is you wish you could do. But he talks about how there's two types of entrepreneurs too. He said there's some that are just primary entrepreneurs, the macro entrepreneurs that can look at something and they see it so clearly. They don't see the world as this big, scary place. They see this world as this opportunity and all the things that they can do with their world, because they see it so clearly as a macro entrepreneur. He says then there are some that are micro entrepreneurs they still have exceptional vision. They have a keen eye for discerning business and financial potential. The heart of an entrepreneur is within them, and they have a mixture of courage and willingness to take some risk and a quiet but relentless desire to be their best. And this is where I love this, because even though it may feel a little bit scary out there, you see the potential. You see and have the desire to let this opportunity help you be all that you can be. And have all that you can have and do all that you can do, because you can see it. And even though it's a little bit scarier than the macro entrepreneur, you're more willing to risk the security of that safe world and not risk the opportunity that you have and could have for your future if you took advantage of this opportunity. So he says, entrepreneurs see, think, and work in ways different from those who are not entrepreneurs. You have to know that, you guys. And I want you to realize you probably came in here not an entrepreneur. Some people did, but some of you didn't come in here as an entrepreneur. So you're having to learn how to see, think, and work differently in order to be able to be successful in the entrepreneurial world. He says, life in a new time zone. That's what you're living in when you enter a world that is new to you. And you guys, I think about like, how easily do we get confused? I know I travel a lot. I love to travel, but how easily do we get confused in which time zone am I in? I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in the Eastern time zone. I need to be on the call at this time, not this time, because I'm so conditioned to the Central Standard Time. And I have to work so hard and keep my brain focused on what time I am physically in so that I don't mess up an opportunity to show up. You guys, we have Central Time, Pacific Time, Hawaii Time, Mountain Time. I've learned time zones in this business. You're learning a time zone. I didn't know there was a Hawaii Standard Time until Chris Spradlin showed up in my life. So you guys, we're learning an entrepreneurial time zone, and it is so different. So think about how much harder, if it's that easy to get confused in our time zones in Central Standard, Pacific, all of those, how hard is it how easy is it to get confused in the bureaucratic time zone versus the entrepreneurial time zone? Do you realize how hard you need to work and stay focused to make sure you don't start thinking in bureaucratic time versus when you're living in an entrepreneurial time? So it's even confusing to try to say it all. So when people in network marketing learn the vast difference between these two time zones, and they learn to pay attention to which time zone they're living in, thinking in, then growing their business becomes much more understandable and fun. Life in the bureaucratic time, you guys, he said, like I said, people think it was somewhat predictable, but you guys, it's also so boring. That's like the day I walked into my office and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember driving here, because I was in such a little rat wheel of Groundhog Day. I mean, it was like the same day over and over and over again. And I felt dead. I felt numb. But that's bureaucratic time. People living in bureaucratic time generally know how many hours they're going to work each day and each week, and how much they're going to earn an hour. Like he said, their lives are routine and rhythm, with which they all are well acquainted with. And he says, those that live in entrepreneurial time pay little attention to how many hours are they working, how much are they making per hour, and all of that. They are focused on much more important and fun things, he says. So you guys, that's what everybody's working on think about it, bureaucratic time. They're like, well, how many hours do I have to work this week? How much am I going to make? And if I do this many hours, you can come home and you can figure your paycheck. That's the most exciting thing about a bureaucratic time life, is how many hours did you work, and add up the paycheck that you're going to get, because it's predictable. But that is not what is inspiring and fun. That's boring. And like I said, it's even at risk, because that's only if your job provides you those hours. Sometimes my son, as an example, his job, was only giving him 30 hours a week. Right now he gets tons and tons of overtime, and it's fun, but there may be a day that he won't get that overtime. So it's not as predictable as people think, but at best, you guys, it's boring. Even if it is predictable, it's boring. So when bureaucratic beliefs meet entrepreneurial time, he says we inadvertently think and live in the bureaucratic time zone, even though we've moved into the entrepreneurial time zone, and we become disoriented. And he says, take, for example, some people take expectations from their planet normal, and they apply them to their entrepreneurial time. The most common concept is that people try to force fit entrepreneurial time zone into the linear income of bureaucratic time. So what you start thinking is, I've worked this many hours in my business, but I only got this much money. Think about it, you guys. How many times have we been so focused on it? The most exciting thing every week is to figure out how many hours I work and how much I get paid an hour, and what is that paycheck going to look like? And you are so focused on that because that's the only exciting thing in your life as a bureaucratic, you know, person living in that world. You come over here and that's still where your brain is conditioned to focus, is how many hours have I worked? And this was my paycheck. Terry Wilson trained in our Discover Arbonne Live this last week. She said how Russell, her husband, who's a dentist, laughed whenever her first paycheck was 20 some odd dollars. And you guys, I promise you, she probably worked a ton of hours that month to get those $20, because it was even back in the dark ages of Arbonne when you made less money on the front end than you do today. What you do today is rich compared to what we made back in the day. But that is where his brain was thinking bureaucratic time in the money part of this world. And you guys, people get frustrated that you feel like you are being taken advantage of. It's where that attitude of, oh, these people above me are making all this money on my effort and I'm not making anything. And maybe all those naysayers and those negative people out there that told me this was a pyramid scheme, maybe they're right. Maybe everything I'm doing is helping somebody else, but it doesn't necessarily and isn't going to help me, because I worked all these hours and I only made this much money. And in my other job, I could work this many hours and make this much money. It's not worth it. And Dr. Barrett talks about 3 different levels of stages of income in the network marketing world later on. He talks about how in the beginning you work all these hours and you get your paycheck and you're like, it's not worth it. And that's where so many people are. And then the second level is you work the hours, you get a paycheck, and all of a sudden it looks fair. You're like, that I worked, and that is a good return of income on my effort. And then you get to the level of income where you look at your check and you go, there is no, excuse my language, no freaking way I could have worked that many hours and made that much income. That I did not work hard enough to make that. That is how the stages go. But you've got to be willing to work through to get to the it's worth it stage at least. And then get to the point where you can enjoy that what you did was not worth, your effort was not equal to the amount of income you got back in return. So that is where people get frustrated. That's where they lose early in the game and you quit before payday. But I will tell you as I was reading this chapter this morning, again, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So that's probably why I didn't get frustrated in this world, because you guys, I was used to working 50, 60 hours a week and only getting paid for 40. Is that fair? But you know what? I knew what was happening to me in my bureaucratic world was not fair. I worked more hours than I got paid, dollar for dollar. I mean, yeah, you can say I had a salary, a number, I made this much per hour, but that was based on a 40-hour work week. I worked 50, 60 hours a work week. So what I needed to do was divide the number of hours I was physically gone working my job. And that was really how much money an hour I made. But that's probably why I was able to come in here, work hard, not get much of a paycheck, although I cannot complain. My first paycheck was $550. It was amazing. And I was like, whoa, if I can do that in a month, I can do that. I can keep doing that and it will help my family. Because you guys, I didn't come in here with a bureaucratic time mindset. I came in here knowing that I was going to work as hard as I could work and hope that I could get to area manager. And you know what happened? Because I did. I worked as hard as I could, and I ended up becoming accidentally regional vice president instead of an area manager, because I wasn't putting it in the wrong world. So, maybe you need to look and go, am I thinking still hour per hour? And even if you are, you guys, let's think, okay, hour per hour. You work this many hours, you got paid this much money, divide that up and see how much and how little it really is. But I want to ask you too, even people that go out and they get a second job to be able to make the income that they need for their families, think about the inconveniences that second job expects you to put up with in order to come and get the money that you need. Think about how you're not going to have the ability to pick and choose the hours that you put into that second job. In Arbonne, it may be a second job for you, but guess what? You get to pick and choose your hours. And the hours you work will pay you back. I mean, if you work and you do what we do, you can make 50 some odd dollars an hour just selling one set. Talk to somebody for an hour and sell an ASVP of skincare and nutrition. You made 50 bucks. Let's look at it in that way, you guys, and that you have the freedom and the flexibility to work it around your priorities and not just make a $50 an hour income when you sell something, but that every time you sell something, you're building a brick in your health and wellness business that has the potential to become a multi-million-dollar health and wellness business. Not just take time from your family that's going to give you a set hourly rate for that time that might help you pay an extra bill this month, but not have anything set up for your future and be robbing you of time that you have with your family. Can we think like that? Can we think like that for real, instead of thinking of all the negative things of just how I worked this many hours and I only got paid this much? You guys, when you stop right there, you cut this industry and the power that this industry has to give back to you so short. And you risk giving up this life-changing opportunity because you can't see what entrepreneurs see. Your vision doesn't see it. And that is what is so mind-blowing to me whenever I see people give up on this so easily. And yeah, I understand. You don't see what I see, and you don't even look and see your life the way I see your life being for you because of the choices that you're making. So he says that, you know, there's that direct correlation between hours of how much they worked and the compensation they receive. And he says, but when this expectation or belief is transferred into entrepreneurial time, he says it clearly, it is death. If you don't learn how to not transfer what you worked for, what you get paid, you will die in this business because you let that negative thought make you think that this is not worth what it is you're doing. And you start believing, you know, some of those naysayers. And he says their old beliefs from another time zone confuse and frustrate them. That's what's happening, you guys. You're getting confused and frustrated from your old time zone thinking, even though you've moved into this entrepreneurial time zone. He says, learn and accept new ways of measuring time and changing your expectations. And like I said, I add, and being grateful for what else this opportunity has for you to be able to have this second job, this second income, or even the job and income that it does provide you if it's your only one, without the other inconveniences that another job would put on you in order to be able to make that hourly wage that takes you nowhere. He says on the front end, you work very hard and expect nothing in return. And on the back end, you're paid far more than you worked for. Like I said, this is the life in a new time zone. And he says it's why we teach people to take the long-term approach to the growth of their businesses. It takes time to grow organizations. It takes time to create depth and an ongoing duplication in your business. It takes time to develop a team and create serious residual income. And he says those who slip back into bureaucratic time grow impatient and confused. And you guys, this is where the other thing that starts feeding the cycle is when you grow impatient and confused, getting passionate. Impatient and confused, you start giving this less time instead of more time. And so you start giving less time instead of more time, and then the results give you less, and you fall into that negative success cycle. We've talked about the success cycle in many of our book club calls. And the success cycle, you guys, is where your amount of belief in the potential that this opportunity has is where you put in that much action. You're willing to put that much action based on your belief that, like, do you believe what I'm telling you right here? And if you do, you're going to put that much work and effort into it, and then you're going to get those kind of amazing results. But if you start slipping back into bureaucratic time and you start getting frustrated with this, you're going to give it less time because you believe your belief is chipped away, the potential that you think this has is going down. So the action you put into it is less, and the results you get out of it are less. And it feeds your belief that this is not going to work for you like it works for others, even if you believe it works for anyone, and you start doing less. And then you're instead of being that airplane that he says we have to give it more fuel in the beginning to take off, I'm going backwards. more fuel to take off, you're giving it less fuel, and you never get your airplane up off of the ground and into cruising altitude where it starts being worth it. And you start not having to fight so hard to make this work. Is this clicking for anybody? Does this make sense? Do you see where maybe your brain has been fighting you and putting you in the wrong direction because of how you were thinking, and letting your bureaucratic mind slip back into that? He says the first thing you would discover is that they have extraordinary vision when you see how entrepreneurs think. He said that's the first thing you're going to notice about an entrepreneur, is that they have exceptional vision. They see potential, opportunity, trends, transitions, emerging markets, needs, and the future with an acuity that leaves non-entrepreneurs feeling myopic and blind. You guys, I mean, how many times have I told you what was going to happen in this business before it happened? And I mean, I'm grateful. I tell people, I thought everybody had my vision because I've just always seen, like, even when I was a little girl living in a junkyard with no back door and no insulation and no sheetrock, I could see I was not going to live there forever. I could see around the corner of that junkyard and that I had a better future ahead of me. I could see it. If I couldn't see it, I would have still been living in that lifestyle, and my family would have never broken the cycle that it had been in since the beginning of this family. You guys, you've got to see what other people can't see. But that is, I mean, I see it, and I see what's coming in Arbonne. And I've told you guys a year and a half ago, I started talking about vision. Even before we were bought by our new parent company and got our new CEO, I was telling you guys, there is something building. It's big. I don't know what it is, but it's coming. And you guys, right now, we have this little thumbnail going all over social media saying Arbonne is growing 26% this year over last year. Were you ready for it? Did you listen? Did you believe and hang around and associate with somebody whose vision was sooner and clearly more fully developed than others? That's what you want to do, and why association that we learned about last week is so important, because if you hang around people that can see around the corners, they help you know what's coming. And even if you can't see it, you know to start working and preparing for it so that you can have what it is. It's going to come your way because you did. That's where you can have eyesight like an eagle, he says. Entrepreneurs see 2 to 2,000. He says entrepreneurs have eyesight like an eagle. They can see perfectly clear at 2,000 feet. Others can't see 2 feet in front of them. That's okay. If you can't see what's 2 feet in front of you, hang out with somebody who you know, like, and trust, and listen and follow them and see through their goggles. You know, like Dr. Barrett says, let them see through your goggles so that you can see what it is that I see, and how you can have this opportunity if you just prepare for it. But if you sit back and you look at those people, like he talks about in this chapter, and go, well, those people were so lucky. Look, man, they just automatically became successful. He says, you're missing the opportunity, because luck is when opportunity meets up with preparation. And somebody who can see around a corner is doing all they can to prepare you for what is around your corner so that you can be one of those lucky ones. That's what I'm here doing, you guys. I can tell you, even as much as we're seeing right now in growth, it's not even a fraction of what we're going to see, because we are in our time. It's taken 40 years to get here, but we're here. And you haven't missed it, but don't take it for granted that we're here and that it will be here forever, because businesses goes in waves. So he says, showing your business to somebody is like giving somebody a vision test. He says, what you're doing whenever you're presenting your products and your business, he says, is you're trying to ascertain if this prospect has any entrepreneurial vision. When you share this with people, do they get it? Do they see it? And he says, it's right in front of their eyes sometimes, he says, if they don't have this. He says, but they cannot grasp it. He says, the next time this happens to you and people turn you off, turn you down, or say no to your offer or whatever, he says, don't take it personally. Just smile, be thankful that you have good eyesight and that you see what others don't. He says, they don't get it. Be gracious, move on, and look for someone with better eyesight. Because you guys, you can see what others can't, and when you do, you get to live like they won't. But don't let their vision mess with yours. If you don't want their life, Don't follow them. Don't let what they do or think about what it is you're doing affect your vision in a negative way. Because if you do, you're going to get to go live like they live. If you let them take you off your track and blur your vision and smudge your glasses, then you're going to lose. And then you're going to start feeding that success cycle in a negative way. And it's going to end up not working out. He says entrepreneurs can see around the corners. They see the future approaching in ways that leave others feeling visually impaired. You guys, this has happened to me so many times in Arbonne. He says the next time you have the opportunity to listen to a macro entrepreneur, pay careful attention. Listen to them when they describe the future of their industries, their companies, their products, or services. Listen to them, but stop paying attention to the information they're sharing. Instead, pay attention to them as people. They're primary entrepreneurs. They are attempting to let you into their minds so that you can see the world with their eyes. They are describing to you an approaching reality. They can literally see in their imaginations what they're describing with their words. Do you guys get that? Like, I remember so many times, like whenever, like negatively and positively, like one time there was this system that came through Arbonne, and I could see long-term, I could imagine in my head what that system was going to do to people's businesses. And I was like, I'm not going there. So many other people just saw right here, and they saw the fast, the fun, the promotions and the easy and all of those things, and they ran with it. I was like, I see further. Don't do that. I'm not doing it. You can do what you want, but this is what I see. And I shared what I saw. People in my organization followed, which is, you guys, the only reason we ended up where we are today in this company, in the position that we are, is that they followed my vision, because I could see what they couldn't see. They challenged me even. They even said, well, why aren't we doing it? Everyone else is doing it. I'm like, no, it's not right. It's not going to work. It's long-term. It's going to fall. And it's exactly what happened. But you guys, on the flip side of that, I've also had a vision of, oh my gosh, this is going to transform this company, Healthy Living. When it came into Arbonne, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We have to get this into our system and incorporate this so that we can give it to our world, and we're going to reach and help more people, grow more businesses faster. And as great and as big as our businesses are today, they're going to be even bigger. And you guys, you know what? People looked at me like I had 3 heads. They did. And yet I had to keep going with my vision because I could see it so clearly. And he says in here, he says they can literally see in their imaginations what they are describing with their words. And then he says, I admire all primary entrepreneurs. I admire them more, even more for something else, you guys. He doesn't admire people for what they can see. And this is so true. As I read this, I thought, I have felt what he just said. He says, true visionaries and pure entrepreneurs, and you have felt it, you guys, but you have to recognize it doesn't make you wrong just because you feel like this. True visionaries and pure entrepreneurs live with unique loneliness while they wait for others to finally begin to see or grasp what they have seen for years. And you guys, he says it's lonely to be a true entrepreneur, to be able to see and live in a world that nobody else can see. And even when you try to help them see it, they refuse it and they reject it. That's where you are at whenever you're giving these people that vision test. Does it feel lonely whenever you feel like you're the only person out of your friends and family that get this, that see this? Does it make you question what you're doing? And if you are the one that's crazy because nobody else, like you're like those people years ago that were like, why aren't we doing what everybody else is doing? And I'm like, it's not going to work out the way we want it to work out. Let's not do that. And yet your head is having to fight that because you see something that no one else can see, and it feels lonely. But you guys, it doesn't make you wrong. It is because you have an acute, keen vision that other people don't have and haven't developed yet. They can develop it because it does come, but they're more like the late in that Start With Why book. The early adapters are people that have clear vision, and then there's the late majority. and those that come later after everybody else is seeing it, they're like, oh yeah, now I feel safe enough to go ahead and believe you and try this and do it, and it's all good. So that's where you're waiting. You know, you guys, you're waiting for those late majority to join you. But understand, it only takes a few to see it. Remember, he said only like 10 to 18 or 15% to be able to get those early adapters in here that are influencers that are going to help you get your belief, your vision, and your mission out there to the rest of the world. That's going to help you hit that tipping point that we learned about in Start With Why. So even though it's lonely, even though not very many people may see what you can see, you don't need very many people. You just need to protect, stay strong, stay convicted in what it is you believe, and don't let anybody take you down and feed your success cycle in a negative way. He says there is no one more lonely than a man ahead of his time. Leaders with visions see things first. They see further into the future. They see things more fully and clearly than people around them, and that can be a lonely place. He says, and it's a difficult balancing act to keep pursuing your vision at high speed while going slow enough for people who are trying to keep up with you. You guys, that is a fine balancing act, because you got to be able to stay where they will be able to come back to you and catch up with you over time, but not slow down and give up on what it is that you can see. He says they soon realize most others can't see what they can see. And in these moments, reps can stay strong and thankful for their good eyesight and tempted to feel the loneliness of, he says, when it happens, you can be tempted to feel the loneliness of foresight and get discouraged. So what I'm asking is, which one are you guys? Which one are you? Are you able to be strong and thankful, or do you find yourself getting lonely and discouraged? That's where you have to be able to check your positioning and adjust as necessary all the time. He says you can improve your entrepreneurial vision. It can develop and grow, and that is why association with other visionaries is so vital. And you guys, vital. Those are those strong words that he uses in this book. They can impact our thinking and enhance our vision. Naysayers will pluck your eyes out if you let them, which means, he says, they're stealing your vision. If you pluck your eyes out, you can't see, you guys. Entrepreneurial vision has improved with time. He says this guy had his entrepreneurial vision improve with time. My entrepreneurial vision has improved over time, you guys. But that's why association with me today is important, because I can see so clearly. When I started this business, all I could see was area manager. I just wanted to be area manager. And I thought, I can do area manager and still work my full-time job and help my family get what it is that our family needed. But what I ended up doing, you guys, was I've gone from seeing a $500 to a $1,500 a month paycheck to being a top income earner in this company and helping others become top income earners in this company. That's how much vision has improved and become more clear for me than it was in the beginning. So your vision can grow. He says, the reason I said that is I thought I could only do this much, so you guys, what I did do though, is instead of just seeing like I could only do area manager, you know how what I think some people do is they go, well, I could do area manager. So you start taking these little baby slow steps to get you to that small vision that you see, and you go slow there. I only saw area manager, maybe just like some of you. Maybe some of you, that's your dream, is area manager. But you know what I did different? I ran as fast as I could to get to area manager as fast as I can. I say it all the time, I'm a get it over with quick kind of girl. And I wanted to get to the good part as fast as I could. I'm like that owl in that commercial years ago, like with the bubble gum inside the circle. How many licks does it take to get into the bubble gum? And it's like 1, 2, and that owl starts chomping that sucker until he gets to the gum. 3. That's how many licks it takes to get to the center, because he couldn't lick it slowly and wait long enough to get to the gum and really count how many licks does it take. I didn't want to count how many licks. I'd already had enough licking. I'd taken a licking in life. I was ready to start getting to the bubble gum, and I wanted the gum fast. And you guys, I only saw area, but I got there fast. And because I got there fast, this industry ability to get successful deceived me. It deceived me in a good way, because I didn't go slow. I didn't see small, so work small. I saw small, but I worked hard to get there. Is this making sense to you guys? I hope I'm not talking in circles. So I saw small, but I worked hard. And when I did, I ended up being regional vice president qualification in my 3rd month. And he says, the most surprising aspect of success is how deceptively simple it is. You guys, I was so surprised when I ended up being regional vice president qualification, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's all I did? And I became a regional vice president? That is how deceptively simple success is. And yet we make it harder than it is. You guys, don't make this hard. It's not. Just do it a lot and you will get where you want to go faster, and you'll be surprised that where you thought you could go, you end up hitting a bigger goal because you took it seriously and you worked it that hard. He says, so how far do you think most participants in network marketing can see? He says, on their best days, they can barely see past recouping their initial investments. Some of you may say, you know what, if all I do is pay for my products, I'm happy. Oh my gosh, you guys, grow your vision. Grow your vision. You can have your life be whatever you want it to be. But he says that's what most people can see. He says it is so far beyond what they can imagine, see, or comprehend. And it's counterproductive to them to even mention it to them. He says, what you need to do, and here you guys will hear this training that you've heard all your life, and you'll know where it came from. Simply listen for their dreams, their desires, and their discontentedness, and share how your company might be a vehicle to get them where they want to go. How is that what you guys have been taught to do? Listen for dreams, desires, and discontents. Listen in 3D, as Dr. Barrett teaches us. Connect the dots for them of how those dreams, desires, and discontents can be met by this vehicle with Arbonne. That's the connect the dots. So he says, successful entrepreneurs learn how to live in a resource state. Resource versus a problem state, you guys. And he says on page 60, he lists out what a resource state looks like versus people that have and live in a problem state. And ultimately, problem state people are full of problems. They think life is hard. Challenges are overwhelming. They see problems everywhere. They're just enduring life. They are just trying to survive, and they feel like a victim in the game of life. Resource state is confident. They believe problems can be solved. Life is good, even though it can be difficult. Challenges can be managed and overcome. They see possibilities everywhere. They enjoy life. They expect to thrive in the game of life, and they feel like a player in the game of life. So you guys, entrepreneurs live with an overall attitude of positive expectancy. They are players in the game of life. They see the future with such clarity and confidence that they are not overwhelmed by their immediate circumstances. And he says again, you can learn to live in a resource state. He says, you can have an attitude. He said, people will start to think you have an attitude, because he says their convictions about the industry as network marketing grows, along with their confidence in their company, so does their poise and their confidence. They become unshakable. Reps become resilient, tougher, and more optimistic, and then their future successes, they realize, do not hang on the response of one person or one appointment. And to other people, this freedom can be at times misinterpreted as an attitude. You guys, I've done a training for years. I call it being 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Walking in a room and people looking and saying, I don't know what that girl or that guy has, but I want it. Because you have such a confidence and such an attitude of, you know what you need to do, you are doing it, and you can help anybody else do it too. And people automatically, you guys, as much as it may be perceived as an attitude, it is exciting and attractive, and people move to you because they're like, if I can just be around you, I feel stronger. And that's where you want to go. He says, what you want to do is be like the airplanes that take off out of the Dulles International Airport for London every day. He says, you know what intrigues me? He tells people whenever he's sharing the story and, telling them, you can say yes or no to me. He says, what intrigues me about these flights is that it doesn't matter if we're on them. Just like those flights, network marketing is going to take off. It's going to become $1 trillion industry with or without us. And it doesn't matter if we're there. And my company is going to take off and become a multi-billion-dollar company with or without us. It doesn't matter if we're there. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity with or without you. I purchased a ticket for this flight. I want to know, do you want to come fly with us? He says, I would love to have you, but it really doesn't matter to me what you decide. Your future may hang on your decision, but mine doesn't. So what you do, and so do what you want to do, you guys. And he says, it may seem blunt to you as a reader, he says, but people actually feel less pressure because they know that you're in a resource state, and their responses do not put you into or send you into a problem state. It allows them to be honest with you as you have been with them, and it's freeing for everyone. And you guys, that's why I love our 5 key point ask. I beg people, let me share this with you, because this is how I connect the dots. These are your dreams, desires, and discontents, and this is how I see Arbonne helping you. Tell me no if you want. Point number 3. You guys, that's the freeing part. We get people to go, I'm not getting on that flight with you, but hear it first. And then you make a date. That 5 key point ask is doing exactly what he's saying you need to do. And it helps you ask with confidence and take the pressure off of people. He says you become less flappable, and you become and get the rubber butt that they talk about. You can get knocked down, but you bounce right back up and you keep going. And we're looking for that small portion of people, like we talked about, the early adopters that will help you get to the tipping point and hit all the late or the majority of people that are later majority people. But he says staying on task is how entrepreneurs work. And he says they talk themselves into staying on task while others talk themselves out of being on task. And you guys, just look and see, congratulate yourself. There's people that did not get on this call today because they talked themselves out of it. And you talked yourself into it. Do you see how you're getting it and you're growing in it? He says they may not want to pick up the phone, but they do it anyway. They see and know what they need to do in their future, and they do what they can today to make it happen. And you guys, that's where that vision video, like Beth Gallardi taught us on the Arbonne One Day, if you can just keep your vision and your dreams in front of you, it will help keep you focused. But he says, not only does the dream have to come from within, so does the desire, the discipline, and the drive. Entrepreneurs have the same internal battle. They just win more of the battles. They wrestle with occasional doubt, fear, fatigue. They don't enjoy being misunderstood by others, and they debate with themselves about whether they should or should not do the right thing, but they don't yield to their immediate feelings or thoughts at the expense of their life goals and their dreams. They focus on where they're going, and they keep moving in that direction. He says you have to become your own worst boss to make yourself do that. And you guys, I have had some of the hardest bosses that were ever in, like, the whole hospital. The nurse manager that I had was known to be the toughest. I mean, drill sergeant tough. And so many people hated her. I respected her, admired her, and appreciated her. I always wish she was a little more friendly and nice and fun, but I appreciated what she did because she ran the best unit in that hospital, and everybody knew it. You guys, then I worked for the doctor that I worked for in the clinic. I had to work more hours and do more for less than anybody else because he expected it out of me. And the way we practiced and what we did in our practice was done with excellence because he expected it. And you guys, those are things that I'm so grateful for again today, because I know that discipline of having to put up and rise to their standard made me realize I needed to have a high standard if I was going to be my own boss in Arbonne. And he says, a wise boss will help you be productive and successful. He says, people dream in the real world of having an easygoing boss. He says, but an easygoing boss will cost you your dream. You guys, an easygoing boss out there in the world will take a company down because they will listen to an employee instead of doing what a business needs it to do to be successful. An easygoing boss in your business will rob you of the future that you could have in this business if you just were the toughest boss and the worst boss that you ever had. He says you need to be tough with yourself, but patient with others. Your future is in your hands. Cut people slack, but give yourself no room for excuses. Let people do what they want to do. We're independent consultants. You can't control them, but don't let yourself have that same slack. He says, make time to associate with peers who understand their world. And he says, no time with positive reference group will help you stay on the cutting edge of knowledge cutting edge of enthusiasm, cutting edge of conviction and belief, and keep you focused, accountable, and on task. Remain in it, and it keeps you in and remains in a state of excellence. That's what those bosses did where I worked. They kept me in a state of excellence all the time, and I learned how to do that, and it's how I work and live in my life today, not only in Arbonne, but every other life area of my life. So that's why we say stay connected or die, because you have to be inspired by people that are tough bosses on themselves. And no, if they can do it, you can too. He says they all wear Nikes, they just do it. And it's not like they took one superhuman vertical leap to success. He says they took it one step at a time, one task, one moment, one day at a time, with just relentless effort and quality time spent building their businesses. And he says, Woody Allen says, 80% of life is just showing up. You guys, 80% of your life, your marriage, your parenting, your business, show up. Just show up and give it excellent time. Be good at what it is you need to be in those areas of your life, so you can have the benefits and the blessings that it will give you back in return when you do. So he says, how could these people be so successful and yet so casual whenever they look like they got there in that one giant leap? He says, because they know it was a countless small steps, and each step, one at a time, was simply a way of life for these diligent people. He says, this is very surprising aspect to success. It is not how elusive and difficult it is. It is not how it can only be visited upon a few fortunate individuals. On the contrary, again, in italicized letters, he says, the most surprising aspect of success is how deceptively simple it is. Set your goals, do the next right thing, and don't quit. Give yourself permission to learn how to live in entrepreneurial time, associate with people whose vision will improve your own, practice living in the resource state, put on your Nikes, and it will change your life. And you guys, it will change your life faster, bigger, better now in Arbonne than ever in the history of Arbonne. So let us help you see what our future holds. As amazing and good as it is today, we're scratching the surface. Trust me, we're scratching the surface. It's gonna be wild. And GTC is going to be another giant leap into that wild future that we have coming with this company. But it's, again, that's just getting us set up to get to where we are going. We're not there, and you haven't missed a boat. So let's start believing like these people believe, working like successful people believe, living and working in entrepreneurial time, so that you can live and have the life of the successful entrepreneurs that look like it was so hard to everybody else, whenever you realize, honestly, I just did what Arbonne has taught me to do. Stop using other people's products, start using Arbonne, and share what I love about it with my world. And whether they get on my plane or flight with me or not, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going with or without them. So I hope you guys love this as much as I do. I told you this chapter was rich, but it is huge in helping you realize maybe where you have let your thinking and where you're living affect how your business is growing. So I hope it helps you guys, and I wish you all the best and a very happy Mother's Day weekend.